There's more skids on that bowl than you can poke a stick at.
Eavesdroppin.
A 1, 2, 3, you just said.
A 1, 2, 3.
Hello, Michelle.
Hi, Geordie. Actually, it sounded like you were about to do the cha-cha. And a 1, 2, 3, cha-cha. You know, the dance steps.
I do. Talking of dance steps and cha-chas, I don't really know what's going on out there in the social media world and in the world of BBC One's fabulously famous and very, very popular Strictly Come Dancing, or just Strictly Ballroom, or whatever it's called. But shit's hitting the fan, mate.
Shit is hitting the fan. Even I've been getting those alerts. I haven't been following because I don't know what it is that's going on. However, it's not good.
No, this might be the end.
Well,
of the Strictly phenomena.
Maybe, quite frankly, couldn't come too soon for me. I've never been a fan of those sorts of things, but people love it. No. People love a dance show.
They do. Just to date us, we are recording in the month of July in the year of 2024. You are listening to Eavesdroppin, the podcast, and I am one of your hosts, Geordie.
And I am Michelle, and because you're listening, you're an eavesdropper. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, well, good on ya.
You're eavesdropping on us.
Yeah.
You're listening in.
It's okay, Michelle. They're allowed. They're allowed. We allow it.
We love it. We allow and love when you listen.
We encourage it.
And we also encourage you, tell your friends. Please. Tell everyone you know.
Absolutely. Tell your friends, because I forgot to mention, but August is the final date, the shutdown date for all those lovely nominations that you guys have been posting for us on the British Podcasting Awards website. Michelle will link it up. We will tell you how to do it. If you go over to our social media page on Instagram or Facebook, there is information on how to do it. I'll do another post, but we really need you to send from every single email address your nomination for Eavesdroppin, the podcast, over on British Podcasting Awards, and then verify your email afterwards by going to your emails and ticking yes.
Otherwise it doesn't count. Then you've gone to all that trouble for nothing.
And we'd really like to make a bit of a mark, bit of a skid mark this year, at least a little kind of a slight stain in the world of podcasting awards shows, because we are up against massively big hitters. But thanks to you guys, we have quite a reasonable sized audience.
We do. And, you know, it's growing all the time. So is the Patreon. And thanks, guys. We are thrilled when you sign up to the Patreon. We are thrilled that you listen, and we are thrilled when you write in.
Do write in. We had somebody writing in. It's a regular writer-innerer,
yes,
as they're known. He's also a patron. His name is Kiss Apocalypse. He wrote in with a bit of a telewreck, Michelle.
Apparently he'd sent it to us before, but we'd managed to gloss over it somehow.
He kept sending back saying, "Why aren't you listening to me, girls?" He didn't say that. He didn't say that. I'm teasing Kiss Apocalypse.
Jono's polite.
He's polite, yes. He did say that he took heed of the Telerex page on Patreon, and he did watch your recommendation, Michelle, Evil, and he said it wasn't bad. Not bad, he said. Not bad. Not great either.
I actually thought it was really good until the last episode where they wrapped up. This is a remake of an older Swedish series and a book. And in the book and the first series didn't end the way it did in this modern adaptation.
Well, there's a little secret little twisteroo.
Because we also had Eavesdropper Steph who started watching Evil. A couple of people are out there on these recs.
Watching your recs.
She was enjoying it, but the original, much darker ending.
Do they not think we can handle the dark stuff?
No one can anymore. It's too woke. Everyone has to have a happy ending these days. Real life, not always like that. And this is based on a true story.
Oh, God. Wow. Okay. That's interesting. You didn't say that before. He also asked, Kiss Apocalypse also asked us if we saw a series called Future Man. And he said the lady in it is kick-ass and he loves it. It's from 2017. There's 3 seasons. It stars people I'd never heard of, Michelle, apart from Haley Joe Osment, which is the little boy that sees dead people.
I see dead people.
A bigger boy. He's a bigger boy now.
A bigger boy. Oh, Well, that's one reason extra to watch.
Yeah.
Do you know what? You know when you go on those really trashy websites and there's always those things that it says sponsored content. It's not part of the website, but it's always these things like, do you recognize this actress from the 80s? Look at her now.
Clickbait.
Yeah, all that clickbait rubbish. I click
through, always let down.
They give you all these things. Like you have to click through 75 pictures to get to the one you want. You're
It's
like,
ridiculous.
this sucks.
And then sometimes it's not even there. I think that this TV show that he's talking about is about a gamer, because I looked on Wikipedia, who gets pulled into a game. I'm thinking that's a little bit like Jumanji, because my kids have just been watching that.
Maybe Kiss Apocalypse can let us know.
He also loves Life on Mars, which I have to agree with. John Sim.
Haven't seen it.
Great series. Oh, you've got to see that. It may have dated, I don't know, but it was around early 2000s and I really loved it. And then they had a sequel called Ashes to Ashes with Keeley Hawes. That was fantastic. Then we had Steve from Amsterdam telling me to watch The Boys, which I think I did watch the first episode. I think it's another kind of superhero style TV show, but a bit more dark.
Okay.
And he sent me a link to Godzilla -1, which is a film from 2016, perhaps because it relates to a previous episode, the Bikini Atoll episode, which is about nuclear testing, because apparently as much as it is a Godzilla movie, it's also about the state of Japan post-World War II. And I believe that the Godzilla has grown from the nuclear testing of the Marshall Islands and Bikini Atoll.
Oh, wow.
That's the backstory.
Okay, very interesting. All right, well, I'm going to link the shit out of those. I will just say it's a bit of an apology, actually, to Eavesdropper Steph.
What have you done now?
Well, I got a message saying, you bitch, you fucking stitched me up. Everyone out there thinks I'm a goddamn Celine Dion fan. I am not. And she was like, why would you do that? She said she said I made out like she was some rabid Celine Dion fan.
Who would not let you go.
No.
She's like, you must watch it again. You must not bag out Celine, my fave.
My fave, Celine. I have to apologize to Eavesdropper Steph.
Must.
She's not a die-hard, dyed-in-the-wool Celine Dion fan. No, she just
enjoyed the doc. Whoopsie.
Eavesdropper Steph did say she listened to the Broadhaven UFO kids seeing this thing in the sky, and she said, I believe the kids. Oh. And I said, okay, why?
Because even you didn't. You kind of were erring on the side of Harrier Jet.
Well, I was erring on the side of, I think they saw something, don't know what it was. She made a point where she said, and maybe I'm getting this wrong, sorry if I do.
Oh my God, here we go, throwing her under the bus again.
She had said something like, if it was just something from the government, like a Harrier jet, they would tell those kids, don't worry kids, it's not a UFO. What you saw was just, something to do with the government.
Not if it was top secret.
No, but would you really traumatize those children for the rest of their lives?
Yes, you would, because that's what governments and military do. They don't give a shit about the collateral damage. So I don't necessarily think that is holding up as a reason. Because they care so much about kids, no.
And look, I actually think I maybe got her comment wrong, so sorry.
Yeah, you probably did.
And there'll be another apology.
Do write in, Steph. We do enjoy it.
Yes, we do.
As we continually throw you under the bus and you don't have a voice and we do. Sorry, darling.
Soz. And speaking of someone who basically doesn't have a voice at the moment, again, sending good vibes to Eavesdropper Jen.
Do get well soon, please, Jen. We miss you.
Keep on eavesdropping. Get well soon.
Keep on trucking.
Keep on trucking.
Keep on trucking, Jen.
Yeah, those panties aren't going to pick themselves up and go on their own.
So we're all thinking best wishes for Jen. Of course we are. She's on my mind a lot, that's for sure. So fingers crossed Jen will be back up on her springy feet in no time at all. Hanging the washing out, seeing the butterflies, listening to the Eavesdroppin' podcasts. Go for it,
Stroking
Jen.
her cat, which I thought was stolen. I thought she'd had a stolen cat that she got off.
What, pre-loved or something, pet-loved or something?
No, it was even worse.
Craigslist.
Kind of like Australia's Craigslist. It's one of these pedigree cats. Ragdoll. Normally thousands of dollars, and she picked it up for $200.
Yeah.
And I said, Mum, you've just bought a stolen cat. That's a hot cat.
Hot pussy.
A hot Oh, God, you had to go there.
Yeah, I do.
Turns out it's not. So hopefully she'll be stroking that pussy soon.
Oh, great.
True, Jen, true. True, Jen, true.
The other day I had this really interesting conversation, Michelle, about hydrocortisone cream, because you were due to come visit me and bring some of the hooky stuff. It's not hooky, but it's definitely something that you can't purchase in the UK because of the high quantity of hydrocortisone. It's not allowed in this country, but in Switzerland it is. So you always bring it over for me. I've got a little bit of eczema on my wedding ring finger. I think it's because I'm stressed out about being married.
Oh, dear. So what are your thoughts on this hydrocortisone?
The conversation went like this. I mentioned that I used it and I said, oh, look how cool am I, because I've got a friend in Switzerland who brings it for me. And he said, oh, don't use too much topically, he said. This is a friend of mine who used to work in the pharmaceutical business, big pharma actually. And he said he used to work on a helpline. A man rang and said that he had been using it on his testicles and that the testicles had thinned, because it thins your skin, Michelle.
Yes.
The testicles had thinned so much that they had become transparent.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I'm just saying.
The advice was to stop using immediately, of course. Apparently you can internally take it fine, but not on top of skin because it will become see-through.
I've got
Yuck. Can you imagine a see-through testicle?
Goldfish bowl. That's my thought right now.
The fish will be a little smaller, but yeah.
Yes.
More like little tiny tatties.
Little tadpoles swimming around in that fishbowl ball. Fucking hell. He must have had some serious eczema on those balls. He was fucking going for it.
Apparently it happens.
You learn something and a health warning. You get it all here on Eavesdroppin.
That's right. Don't say we don't give you anything.
Now, this doesn't have anything to do with balls, sadly.
Okay.
But I do have a story for you, and it's about murder.
Murder. Are we in the true crime territory this episode, Michelle? I believe we must be.
True crime time! That's where we're at this week. And I've called this story The Town That Got Away with Murder.
Oh. Is this Larimar?
No, Skidmore.
Skidmore?
It's a real place, and all I can think of is toilet bowls and a little skiddy.
Of course you can.
There's more skids on that bowl than you can poke a stick at. This is a place called Skidmore. I mean, you can already tell this place is on the skids. You know, it's a tiny town in Missouri.
Yeah.
And in 1981...
Literally.
In 1981, a guy called Ken McElroy.
Hang on. What was Ken listening to in 1981? Do we know?
I didn't do it.
You didn't even do that.
I didn't do it.
Michelle, let the team down.
I've let the team down, especially as it's my favourite decade for music. Jesus, what was wrong with me?
Don't know.
81. There was a guy called Ken McElroy. Everyone hated him in the town.
Endless Love. Lionel Richie, Diana Ross.
My endless love.
And you got Betty Davis eyes. Kim Cairns.
She got a heart of gold. Fantastic. You don't need any more songs. I mean, 81 sounds like it was a good year.
That's enough.
A good year. That is enough, though. But back to Ken McElroy. Town fucking hated this guy. He was so disliked and so feared because he was a fucking asshole that basically when he was shot to death in broad daylight on the main street with 40 plus people around him, no one in Skidmore, A, gave a shit because they fucking didn't like this asshole, and B,
oh my God,
no one was prepared to tell the police who the shooter was. And for more than 40 years, this town has kept the identity of that shooter a secret, despite the fact that there were 40 plus people there that day who saw what went down. So Geordie, what the fuck is going on here? Because I was thinking, is this just a case of vigilante justice where kind of the bullied, because this guy was a bully and more. So is this kind of like, you know, taking revenge on the town bully or something else? So I just decided to look into this because I remember reading about this case a couple of years ago and then I forgot about it. So here goes. Kenneth McElroy, born June 16, 1934 in Nodaway, Missouri.
Who names these places?
I don't know. Nodaway, Skidmore.
Nodaway, Skidmore. Oh, no, it's not Nodaway of Skidmore. It's Nodaway,
no, it's
Missouri.
Missouri. He was the 15th child in a family of 16 kids.
Oh, I've just had to cross my legs without even thinking about it.
I know, you just had images of those bloody clear testicles. Empty.
No, I didn't.
What? Someone emptied those clear testicles 16 times.
Jesus.
Obviously, this family was poor. The parents were migrant tenant farmers who moved between Kansas and the Ozarks. And by the way, that's a fucking telewreck right there if anyone ever wanted to watch a great series. Ozark. Incredible.
Okay, thank you.
So the family moved between Kansas and the Ozarks before settling kind of on the outskirts of Skidmore. And that must have been really fucking dirt cheap because Skidmore is a town the size of a pea. Ken left high school without knowing how to read. He could barely write. No education.
Oh, well, they didn't do a very good job.
No, but he's one of these kids from a poor family who all he knew how to do was be a thug and steal shit. So that's what he was. He was kind of a petty thief, turned to a life of crime young, was stealing shit, assaulting people, that kind of thing. Ken McElroy was not a good guy. All the while he was continuing to kind of steal stuff, including cattle, and that brought in the big money. He then moved on to different crimes like arson, statutory rape, child molestation.
Oh, God. No, Kenneth, I no longer have sympathy for you and the way you were raised and slipping through the cracks. Sorry, Ken. That's not okay.
This guy deserves to be put in the fucking bin. He's an asshole. You know, domestic abuse.
Sounds like he was put in the bin at some point, though, Michelle.
Well, yes. He's not a good guy. You get a picture from this shit. Over his lifetime, he had more than 37 arrests for felony crimes, but never convicted. Not even one time.
Why not?
Well, A, he had a really good lawyer, but B, he fucking basically terrorized and beat anyone up who went to the cops about him or threatened to go to the cops about him. He would just beat them or worse.
Oh, God.
So he just bullied his way.
Worse?
Yeah, I'll get onto that, pin that. So, yeah, he bullied his way into staying out of jail. I mean, even the cops were scared of him. The whole fucking town was scared of this guy. So he kept acting like an asshole, kept getting away with it. Actually, for Ken, life was pretty good. You know, he did what he wanted with pretty much no consequences. So I'm going to rewind a little bit and look at Ken's life a little bit deeper because that's sort of the overview. He was married 3 times. He had 12 kids of his own.
Oh, see, that's a bit of a theme.
Yeah, and not just with the wives, with loads of different women.
Oh, I see.
Well, there's speculation that it was probably closer to 19 kids.
Jeez.
So we'll start with marriage number 1. 1952, when he was 18, he married Oleta Holland, who was 17 at the time, which is acceptable. But the marriage didn't last long because basically this guy was a pedophile. When he was 20, yeah, he's a fucking creep. When he was 20, he started hanging around high schools, trying to groom young girls.
Oh, God.
And the first arrest on that rap sheet of 37 arrests was for statutory rape in 1955.
Oh, yikes.
I'm pretty sure it was a 12-year-old girl.
Oh, yuck.
Yeah, he's fucking foul. The charges were dropped because Ken terrorized the girl and threatened her basically with all sorts of horrible things if she took it further. So he got away with it. After that, Ken divorced Oleta and married a 15-year-old girl called Sharon Fossinger. I think because she was pregnant, actually. So now this info comes from a website called crimelibrary.org. I don't know if it's reliable, but stick with me here with all these facts, which I got from that website. It gets a bit convoluted. Apparently, Ken knew that if he targeted poor, uneducated girls between the ages of 12 and 15... he would be able to have his way with them.
Carry on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he would do things like he would win them over with sweets, rides in his car. Of course, quite a few of these sexually abused children became pregnant. And if the parents then threatened Ken, like, I'm going to the police, you've raped my child, he would make threats like, I'm going to shoot you and your whole family, that kind of thing.
Fucking hell.
So Ken's married to 15-year-old Sharon, who is pregnant. But Ken's now lost interest in Sharon, and he's now grooming a 13-year-old girl called Sally, who is 100% not interested in this creep. But when she says, I don't want to have sex with you, he beats her up so badly that she just gives in. And he threatens to kill her father.
He's horrible.
This guy is evil. He's so awful. Like I said, she starts sleeping with Ken to save her family and to not get beaten up. Ken decides, you're not going to live with your family anymore. You're going to move in with me. So he moves her in with him and 15-year-old Sharon, who's pregnant. Over the following years, Ken has 7 kids with Sally and Sharon. Sally is the 13-year-old. Then in late 1964, when both Sally and Sharon were up the duff, Ken started grooming a 15-year-old girl called Alice. He's 30.
Oh, I hate him.
Yeah. And just like that, he leaves Sharon and Sally with all those kids and moves in with Alice, who is also now pregnant and has more of Ken's kids. All the while, he's grooming other kids, including a 15-year-old girl called Marsha, who also is up the duff to him. He's got 10 kids at this point.
I hate this story, Michelle. It's just so depressing.
It's fucking terrible. And then in 1969, he's 35 at this point, he grooms a 12-year-old girl called Trina McLeod, and he's obsessed with her to the point where he pays a boy her age to pretend he's taking Trina on dates. So this kid, who's also 12, goes to Trina's house, says, oh, yeah, we're just going to go out and play. He hands her over to Ken. Ken basically rapes this kid. And then this 12-year-old boy, after Ken's finished with her, walks her home.
Oh, my God.
And everyone in town knew this guy was a pedophile. No one did anything. Even the local school knew what he was doing, and they did nothing. And then, like all the others, Trina, when she just turned 14, was pregnant. So she dropped out of school. He moved her in with him and Alice. And like all the others, Ken would beat her up, beat up Alice, beat those children.
Oh, no.
16 days after Trina gave birth to a son, she and Alice decided to band together and make a run for it with their kids, hoping to find a safe place with Trina's mother and stepfather. But of course, Ken, a couple of hours later, found them and forced them home at gunpoint. And then he beat them so badly.
Oh, no.
And this is horrible. At gunpoint, he forced Trina to strip, she's 14, and perform demeaning sex acts. Then he drove Trina to her mother and stepdad's house. They weren't there, they were out. He got his gun, he shot the family dog, and then set fire to the house and watched her family home burn to the ground.
What a monster.
So 2 days later, Trina goes to the doctor because she's beaten up.
Yeah.
And he kind of got it out of her about what had happened. And finally, someone takes action. This doctor calls welfare. Trina's baby gets put into foster care. Trina is sedated and hospitalized while she recovers. And the police get involved. And in June 1973, Ken is arrested for assault, rape, and arson. But this guy has a shit-hot fucking lawyer called Dick McFadden. Gets him released. $2,500 bail. And he does say, though, to Ken, listen, these charges are going to be hard to beat if Trina testifies against you. Trina, meanwhile, has been placed in a safe house with the foster family in a different town. But, of course, Ken finds them and just starts a campaign of harassment. And this is early 70s, 69, 70. It wasn't the same as it is now where, you know, you're not allowed within a 500-step radius or whatever it is. You know, this guy was eyeballing them. He was standing outside their house. He would sit in his car. He would watch them. He'd call the house, threatening phone calls, saying things to the foster mum like, I know where your daughter goes to school. I know the school bus she takes. If you don't give me back Trina, your daughter's going to get it next. So, you know, really horrible threatening things. This is all happening while the prosecution are building a case against Ken. You know, and they're adding loads of different charges to it because other people are coming forward. But Ken's lawyer has all these tactics and all these tricks to postpone the trial. And then Ken says to him, hey, Dick, are these charges going to stick if I marry Trina? And they realise that if Trina and Ken were married, all the charges would be dropped because she's not allowed to testify against him, or she can't be compelled to testify against him.
Okay.
But Ken's still married to Sharon. So out of the blue, very suddenly, the next day, Sharon turns up at Ken's lawyer's office and says, I want a divorce. He gets a divorce super quick, and within hours, he's found Trina, basically kidnapped her, and they get married. All the charges against Ken were dropped because that's the whole point of this. Right. So once again, this fuckwit escapes jail. Yeah. It goes on and on. Now she's married to him. She's back in the house. He's knocking her up. He's knocking her about. Yeah. And it's just awful. So we're going to skip 2 years forward to July 27th, 1976. There's a farmer called Romaine Henry. he's at home on his farm and he hears gunshots on his property. So he goes out to see what's going on and he finds Ken parked on a road next to Romain's property.
Yeah.
And when he goes up to say, hey, what's going on? Ken accuses Romain of trying to basically hit on one of his child brides or one of the girls he's, having sex with, because he's still a pedophile. He's still out there doing all of this. Yeah. He gets his gun and he shoots Romain in the stomach, in the cheek and in the forehead.
Oh my gosh.
But somehow Romain is not dead.
Wow.
He manages to get to the hospital. The police get involved. Ken's arrested the next day and charged with intent to kill. But Ken denies being anywhere near Romain's property. Okay. And he's got these two fucking dodgy friends who back up a story that he was with them. It goes to trial. And even though Romain identifies Ken as the shooter, these dodgy mates who'd given him an alibi, they get him off the charges and he walks away a free man. Oh. This guy is just getting off every fucking charge. Then he goes around Skidmore bragging about how I just got away with that. I should have just killed Romain when I had the chance. This doesn't go down well with townspeople and they fucking hate this guy. Then, on April 25th, 1980, a few of Ken's kids went to the local shops to buy some sweets and one of them accidentally walked out of the shop without paying. And the shop assistant kind of roused on the kid and was like, hey, are you trying to steal that? Bring it back. You need to pay for it. This kid runs home in tears, tells the whole story to Ken, who freaks out. He gets up, grabs his gun, goes to the store, goes berserk at the shop assistant for accusing his kid of stealing. Then he leaves, comes back with a knife and threatens the owner of the store, who wasn't even there at the time. Doesn't do anything, but for a month, he stalks those store owners. They're called Lois and Bo Bowenkamp. Until one day, while Bo is at the store, Ken's had enough and he shoots him in the head, in the neck, and in the torso. But miraculously, Bo, who is 70, survives. And Ken is arrested hours later, but his fucking lawyer, who is a super lawyer, manages to get him released on bail the next day. But Ken is pissed and he is out there threatening anyone who is connected to Bo and who's going to testify against him at this trial. Yeah. So, 25th of June, 81, Ken is officially charged with first-degree assault with a deadly weapon, and that comes with a minimum of 10 years in jail. Ken's lawyer is like, it was self-defense. And miraculously, a woman out of nowhere comes and says, hey, I was just walking past at the precise moment shit was going down, and I 100% saw Bo going at Ken with a knife. At this trial, the jury doesn't believe it. Ken's found guilty of second-degree assault, and he's sentenced to 2 years in prison.
Only 2?
However, the judge then lets Ken out on bail because his lawyer is appealing. So there's a 25-day appeal period, and the judge is like, yep, you're on, pay the court whatever amount of money, and you can get out on bail. So he's out, and he's angry. And 4 days after he was charged, he goes into a bar with an assault rifle with a bayonet on the end of it.
Oh, God.
And tells everyone, I'm going to kill Bo. And a police officer is in this bar and he threatens the police officer. But it seems, Geordie, that the attack on the town's beloved grocer, Bo, was one step too far. And after people realised that he was charged, he was given 2 years. But this fucker still isn't in prison and he's out there threatening Bo and threatening a police officer. They'd had enough.
Yep.
So the townspeople of Skidmore, who had been putting up with Ken's violence, intimidation, his pedophilia, his crimes, all this abuse for years, they'd had enough. And it seemed to them, even with the smoking gun evidence of him shooting Bo, they're like, he's going to get off. This lawyer's going to get him off. And the police are not protecting us. They're not doing anything about this. It's time to take charge.
Yep.
The first step was a meeting at the town hall with the police to discuss their outrage that he was out on bail, and they wanted to say to the police, what the fuck can you do to get this guy behind bars? And the police were like, well, nothing. This has come from the court. He's on bail. Then they found out that the lawyer had managed to get even more time on this appeal. So he was going to be out for weeks and weeks and weeks. But the residents were like, okay, thank you very much for the meeting. See you later, police. They all stayed behind and had their own little powwow about what the fuck are we going to do. So after the meeting, the whole town, except for the town sheriff, went to this local tavern after they had been at the town hall. And what do? What comes next? Right at that precise moment, Ken and Trina arrived at that tavern. And the tavern owners were like, get the fuck out. You're not welcome in here. So they were asked to leave. They did. And as they were walking back to Ken's truck, all the people who'd been at that meeting, and we're talking like 40, maybe 50 people, they followed Ken and Trina back to his truck. He gets in his truck and Geordie, Ken is shot 4 times.
Oh.
Yep. Once in the neck, twice in the back, and once in the back of the head in broad daylight with 50 fucking plus people. Not one single person called an ambulance.
Wow.
This guy bled out to death on the front seat of his truck with Trina beside him.
Oh, my God.
To this day, not one single person has given up the identity of the shooters because, yes, there was more than one.
Of course.
They found 3 different types of bullets in his body, and the angles of the shots made it clear that there was more than one shooter. And after he was shot, the townspeople, they just left his body in the truck and went back to doing their shit.
Wow.
Just left him there. And this is a quote from Bowenkamp's daughter, Cheryl Houston, in an interview she did for the New York Times. She says, "We were so bitter and so angry at the law letting us down that it came to somebody taking matters into their own hands. No one has any idea what a nightmare we lived. Once the shroud of silence fell, there was going to be no one talking." And look, despite numerous investigations by law enforcement over the years, by police and even the FBI, no one has ever gotten to the bottom of this murder. Not a single townsperson has said a word. And instead, they said things like, when they were questioned, "Yep, I was there, didn't see the shooter." That's what the police kept getting over and over.
Right.
Now, Trina came forward saying she saw who the shooter was, but the charge didn't stick because there was no evidence. They couldn't pin any of the bullets on anyone, and no one would come forward with any evidence. So Trina did eventually file a wrongful death lawsuit against the town, the county, and various individuals, but all of it was settled out of court. And she eventually remarried and moved to Lebanon, which we have talked about Lebanon before, and I cannot remember why, but she died of cancer in 2012 on her 55th birthday. As for Ken McElroy, to this day, his case is open and unsolved. And the town has kept this secret of who killed him for more than 40 years. I will say RIP, but I'm changing it to rot in purgatory because this guy was a fucking creep and, like I said, should have been put in the bin the first time he raped a child.
Yeah.
And that is the story of Ken McElroy.
And the town who got away with murder. And in a way, I just don't think it's worth trying to find out who the shooter is because it sounds like they did what they needed to do to protect themselves.
I think so too. It is kind of like mob justice, but from that guy, he needed to go. He was a stain.
He was a stain in Skidmore.
He was a skid mark on Skidmore. After he died, you would think that this town would be like peaceful and happy. No, this town has suffered cycle after cycle of violence. And I don't know if it was something to do with him and a legacy of violence. I don't know. Maybe they just needed another bully to come in and fill his shoes. So it hasn't been a happy ending for that town, but that is another story.
Wow. Thank you, Michelle.
True crime time. True crime time. True crime time. True crime time.
So I'm also going to stay in the United States of America. We're going today to San Antonio, away from Skidmore. We're going to San Antonio, in Texas. And this is June 13th, 1994. And Michelle, unlike you, I did do the top 3, or at least, of the year of 1994. The best songs out there at that time were Ace of Base, topping the charts with I Saw the Sign. I opened up my eyes, I saw the sign. Why? I don't know.
I thought you were going to say, all that she wants It's another baby.
No.
Is that Ace of Base?
I think so. Then you've got eavesdropper Steph's favourite, Celine, warbling along to The Power of Love, which I can't remember how that goes because there's like 100 songs called The Power of Love, isn't there? The Power of Love.
No, but I think
And the Power of
That's
Love.
it.
No, it's
I
not.
think-
That was Jennifer Rush. There's Jennifer Rush, Huey Lewis and the
No.
News, and Celine.
I think Celine did a cover of the Jennifer Rush song. Eavesdropper Steph, get in touch. You're such a fan. I'm sure you'll be able to clear it up.
Yikes. Oh, and of course, here in the UK, the top number one of the year was... It was a wet, wet, wet year because we had wet, wet, wet with Love Is All Around Me. I won't even go there because I hate that song and I hate that
feel
band.
it in my toes.
Awful.
Yes, not a good one.
And just to keep it light, Elton John, Can You Feel the Love Tonight? Can you feel the love tonight? That one.
I don't know that song. I don't know it.
Do you know? Did I not sing it right or something?
It's not even that. I think you had the tune. I just don't know it.
Well, that's a shame. It's a little bit
Interesting,
like
okay.
Avicii. Everyone write in and give Michelle a hard time because she doesn't know Can You Feel the Love Tonight by Elton John.
Sorry.
We needed to lighten it up, Michelle, because your story was particularly dark and dreadful. This story ain't that great either. We're going to talk about a little guy called Nicholas Barclay, who was 13 years old in San Antonio in 1994. His mum gave him $5 to go and play basketball with some friends down at the park, which is about a mile or two away from their house. Nicholas was the youngest in his family. He's raised by single mum Beverly. He's an older sister called Carrie and an older brother called Jason. Nicholas had this reputation, a little bit like your Kenneth, for being troubled and often skipped school, but he wasn't as bad as Kenneth. Plus, he had a juvenile criminal record because he'd stolen shoes, threatened a teacher, broken into a convenience store, several little bits and pieces here and there. When he was ready to go home after this basketball game, Nicholas called his mum and asked her to pick him up. But his mum worked nights and slept during the day, so it was actually his older brother Jason that picked up the phone, and he refused to wake mum up.
Okay.
Jason said to Nicholas, "Walk home." Sadly, that's the last time his family heard from Nicholas. Now, because Nicholas had run away previously several times before, he always came back within a day, but this time he had a court appearance scheduled for the next day, which was really crucial that he attended because it was about a decision the courts needed to make to either keep him at home with his family or be sent to a home for juvenile criminals because of what I referred to earlier.
Okay.
Once he was reported missing, police just thought he was hiding out to avoid the court date. As such, they were really slow in responding to the search for Nicholas. Once the police mobilised, however, and began investigating, they figured out that with just $5, he couldn't have gone very far on his own and figured that they would find him pretty quickly, especially because he was carrying a pink backpack and wearing purple trousers at the time of going missing.
Okay.
But within a few days of searching, Michelle, it became apparent that Nicholas was missing without a trace.
Oh, shit.
Beverly believed her son might have hitched a ride with a stranger, and that's what befell him. Then about 3 months later, police received a call from Nicholas's brother Jason in the middle of the night. He said to police that he could see Nicholas outside right now breaking into their garage.
What?
Then the police arrived and they were told by Jason he's run away. So they searched the neighborhood and there was no sign of him. Also, there was no sign of tampering with the garage. So the police began to wonder, had Jason seen Nick at all or could he have been lying?
Right. Okay.
Bearing in mind he went missing in 1994. Now we're going to jump forward to 1997. Yes, Barbie Girl is the hit song of the time by Aqua. And that awful, dreadful song, some people love it, Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba. I hate that song.
What's that?
I'm not even going to go there because it will get stuck in everyone's head and they'll hate me for
Is
it.
it I Get
Yes,
Knocked Down?
it is that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right.
Police in San Antonio received a call from a man working in a youth shelter in Spain. He had news about Nicholas Barclay, that he was found alive and picked up by police and being kept in a place in Spain. So the caller explained that Nicholas had escaped a child sex ring operation run by high-ranking European political and military officials and had been abused for the last 3 years but was alive and in reasonable health.
Oh, my God.
During his time in Europe, He had even learned French as well as the basics of a few other European languages. So the family, overjoyed by this news, sent Sister Carrie to Spain to identify him. Once Carrie got there, she confirmed this was her brother, especially after she saw his homemade cross tattoo on his arm. That's got to be him. Obviously, he was different, though. He told her that he'd forgotten almost everything from his previous life. So the two sat and looked through photo albums together, and gradually his memories seemed to be returning. And before you know it, he's asking questions like, is Grandpa still an asshole?
Okay.
This Nicholas was very quiet, though, compared to the young tearaway. But given the torture and abuse he'd been through in the last few years, it was hardly surprising, Michelle. And before they could send him home with Carrie to the United States, they needed definitive proof that he was who he said he was. So they had family photographs sent over that he had never seen before, but they were of people that he knew, and he was tasked with identifying them as a test, which he did, minus maybe one person. That was enough for them to issue him a new passport and send him home to his family. There were a few anomalies, however, Michelle. For example, quite a big one. Nicholas's eyes had gone from blue to dark brown, and his hair had darkened, and his complexion had changed. Nicholas had told his family that the men and women who'd run the sex ring operation had chemically dyed his hair, eyes and skin to make him unrecognizable.
Oh my God, that's not even fucking possible.
Well, Michael Jackson might disagree with that.
Yes, I know, he's dead. Oh, I just knew there's a twist in the tale here.
His personality was different too. He didn't like to be touched, and he was very quiet and standoffish. And again, he said this was all due to the abuse that he'd suffered. His family accepted the explanations, Mish. This piqued the interest of a private investigator, though, named Charlie Parker. He went with a TV crew to Nicholas's family home and interviewed him just as all this press attention was surrounding the family after they'd gotten Nicholas back and the strange circumstances under which he disappeared and returned to them. Parker, the PI Parker, said he found Nicholas creepy. And as he sat opposite Nicholas, filming him, Parker noticed that a family photo was behind or near to Nicholas as he was doing the filming. Alarm bells went off for Parker. He asked the TV producer with him to zoom in on the ears of Nicholas. Apparently, ears are like fingerprints, Michelle, and Charlie Parker noticed that the two ears of Nicholas in front of him and Nicholas in the picture were completely different. And as far as he was concerned, this was not Nicholas Barclay, but an imposter.
Is one pointy like Spock and the other one is just a normal ear?
I don't know the differences.
Goodness me.
No, I like Yoda. In February 1998, now, don't want to miss a thing, Aerosmith sang, and really, maybe some people should have been a bit more on board with that song title because people were missing tricks left, right and centre by the sound of it.
Fucking eye colour, for one.
The FBI finally obtained a court order to take Nicholas's fingerprints and DNA. Why wasn't this done the first time?
That was my point coming up, which is DNA testing, dudes. It's not the 60s, it's the 90s. Come on.
Rather than going through pictures and going, but now we had proof. This was not Nicholas Barclay, but a 23-year-old French-born man known as Frédéric Bourdin, a.k.a.
Here we go.
The Chameleon. Bourdin was renowned in Europe for impersonating missing children and claims to have assumed at least 500 false identities, 3 being missing teenagers. Bourdin's life was a bit sad. His parents weren't in the picture. He was raised by his grandparents in a place called Nantes in France until he ran away and eventually moved to Paris. But in Nicholas's case, Bourdin realized something suspicious himself, because the last person that fake Nicholas reunited with was older brother Jason, who called the cops that time, saying he saw him in the garage. Bourdin says, when he came to see me, Jason that is, he didn't look at me like I was Nicholas. He didn't pretend to look at me like Nicholas. And he said, good luck to me, and he left. They knew I was not Nicholas. They didn't believe a word that I said, but they were good at not showing it. I remember in Spain, Carrie did everything for me. When I didn't know something, she told me, that's the house we used to live in. That's my daughter, your niece. Do you remember that? Remember that, remember that, remember that, over and over again. She wanted to put it in my head so I would never forget. She couldn't say that I wasn't her brother. Did she believe it or not? If you ask me, no. She did not believe for a second that I was her brother. She decided that I was going to be her brother.
What is the psychology behind this? Because this is fucked up.
Well, investigators continued to investigate the family and looked again at that phone call that Jason made to police in 1994, because it was a known tactic in previous murder cases to try to convince police that someone is alive by saying they could see them, they spotted them, whatever, making a fake spotting.
Oh.
Bourdain believes the family knew what happened to Nicholas. In fact, he'd go so far as to say that they killed him, or at least one of them did, and some of them knew.
Shit.
So Bourdain called police and reported Nicholas's murder.
Oh my God. Another twist in the tale here. Holy
Yep.
shit.
Unfortunately, though, before police could even question Jason, he died from a drug overdose. Whether that was because he felt the net closing in, I don't know. No one knows. But there is a 2012 Netflix documentary about this case called The Imposter, and Bourdain in it explains how it all began. He, as you know, had been doing this for many years, and after being picked up by police in Spain, like a kid lost in the streets, right? They picked him up, brought him to the station. He wasn't giving any info, and he was worried that they would fingerprint him and send him to prison if he didn't have a story, so he made one up. He said he was American and had run away from home, and then he begged them to be allowed to contact the family himself.
Right.
Now, because of the time difference, he convinced the cops to let him stay in an office overnight. He got to work phoning American police stations, not the family, pretending to be an officer. And he told them an American kid had turned up in Spain believing to be a US missing teen. And eventually somebody gave him the number for the National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children, where Nicholas Barclay's name was put forward as a possibility.
Right.
They faxed over a photo where in the office he received it, and it was a photo from several years earlier. So then he knew what to do. He then went off to his holding cell once he'd made all the calls, and he knew that there'd be significant changes.
Yeah.
And so in his mind, and he said this, if there's a change, there is doubt. If there is doubt, then I've got a chance. Something in my head decided that I could do it, that I had to try. So when he was put back in the holding cell, he dyed his hair blonde and got another young girl in custody to tattoo him to match Nicholas's tattoos.
Right. Smart.
Ready to go.
Smart and calculated. This guy, my God.
So by the time Carrie came, he was all good to go. Mm-hmm. And then in September 1998, Bourdain pleaded guilty to passport fraud and perjury in a San Antonio federal court and was imprisoned for 6 years. After that time, in 2003, he was returned to France, and he moved to Grenoble in France and got back to his old tricks. He then assumed the identity of Léo Bally, a 14-year-old French boy who'd been missing since 1996.
Hang on. But how old is he at this point?
He's probably 30.
Right. Okay. Oh, God.
But DNA testing proved he was not Bally. And then in Spain in August 2004, he was caught claiming to be a teenager named Ruben Sanchez Espinosa, whose mother had been killed in the Madrid bomb attacks. When the police found out the truth, he was deported back to France. Then, in June 2005, Bourdain created the identity of Francisco Hernandez Fernandez, a 15-year-old Spanish orphan, and yes, Michelle, he's well into his 30s by now, whose parents had been killed in a car crash. He even spent a month in the college in a school in Pau in France.
Oh, God. This guy, he will go to any lengths.
He dressed and walked around like a teenager and had to cover up his receding hairline with a baseball cap. And he used something like Nair, like a depilatory cream, to give him a baby face.
Oh, my God.
But an admin from the school saw a TV program about him, so the jig was up.
Yep. Exactly. Fucking hell.
He was then later sentenced to 4 months in prison for possessing and using a previous false identity of Léo Bally. What motivated Bourdain to impersonate young missing people? Well, it's thought that it's because he was abandoned by his parents and raised by his grandparents, and he'd been looking for love and affection and the attention that he never received as a child.
Right.
And in a way, it drew comparisons for me to that film Saltburn. That awful film that I didn't like.
Yeah, none of us like that.
No.
So he wasn't abandoned in Saltburn, if I remember correctly.
He wasn't, but he just didn't like where he came from.
He just didn't want to be poor from an ordinary family. So
Yeah.
he did everything he possibly could. But, I mean, this guy is extreme. I mean, he is going from country to country. And can you imagine the hope that these families must feel only to be realised they've been once again taken advantage of and their hopes are dashed? Like, just heartbreaking.
Yes, not a lot of thought went to that. But then in the case of Nicholas Barclay, he actually solved a crime. Well, he didn't solve a crime, but he uncovered something equally suspicious.
So what happened?
Cold case. They could never find the murder.
No.
They had no evidence. They couldn't find the body. They couldn't find the murder, I believe.
Okay, fuck. So basically,
I don't think his body was ever found. No one knows what happened. The FBI dropped the investigation, and to this day, they still don't know.
holy shit. So basically, look, it could have been accident, misadventure, deliberate, if the family was involved.
Well, the creepy thing is that the brother made that phone call.
Yes, that is probably the most suspicious thing
Yeah.
about this whole case. If the brother hadn't have done that, you could just think, oh, this is just an awful case of a kid gone missing and, you know, foul play, whatever.
Yeah. And also, I think the willingness to accept Bourdain as Nicholas was another telling sign as well.
That family closed ranks just like the town did with Kenneth McElroy. Fucking hell. Oh, Geordie, what a twisty-turny ride. Amazing.
www.eavesdroppinpodcast.com. Hello at eavesdroppinpodcast.com. Email us a story.
Share, like, all of that.
Follow our social media.
Like, subscribe.
Instagram and Facebook.
Yep, you know what to
At
do.
eavesdropping_.
You got that
Or
right.
just eavesdropping. With a G.
Where are they now? I wonder what's happened to that dickhead who keeps impersonating people.
Well, I think that he's still around. There's a Wikipedia page for him. I'll send you the links.
Ugh. Okay, and I will pop that in the show notes. And if you're on Patreon, you can click away and go down a wormhole of losing hours of your life
Yes.
by clicking the links associated with the show.
Click away, indeed. And also, while you're at it, vote away, because don't forget, that's how much we need you. We really want to make a little impact this year.
Oh, well, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted from that guy assuming all those identities.
It's too much.
I need a little lie down.
Well, why don't we just say then those last three things that we normally say when it's come to the end of the podcast?
Yes, wherever you are.
Whatever you do,
Just
keep eavesdropping.
Eavesdropping. Eavesdropping.
Dropping.
Eavesdropping.
Dropping.
Eavesdropping. Eavesdropping.
Dropping.